podcast where best friends and next-door neighbors, Willow and Lillian, spill the tea on murder, mysteries, and other things that go bump in the night. So get your favorite teacup ready, and let's get into it. Welcome to Cruelty Podcast. This is Lillian, and with me is Willow.
Hello.
I said that crazy.
I did too.
Yeah.
Hello.
I don't know how to talk normal at the beginning.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
No, I don't either, frankly. That's why I've been hesitant to do video, is that we are crazy hand talkers.
Yeah. And fidgeters, and I don't sit still.
Nope. So there's that. That's good. But anyway, first I just want to ask, how are y'all doing? You can't answer me, but get on our Discord and you can. That's
so there.
So there. It's free. And
yeah. And we're over there.
And I want to see pictures of your dogs.
Yeah.
Or kitty cats or fish or whatever you got.
Facebook don't like me. Instagram don't like me.
Boy, they really don't.
No, they really
never see your posts.
Yeah. I'm like shadow banned in the most shadowy shadow realm of all.
You have been sent to the shadow realm. That's true. But yeah, we're continuing with our held in captivity month, and I don't even know what you're covering because I didn't ask.
Well, they do. Because
they know. They read the title.
Yes. I'm covering Katie Beers tonight.
I did.
Yeah. I hadn't actually known about her abduction. I do believe she was another one of the ones that were suggested to me through Patreon several months ago, because I've had her on my list for a long time.
Yes, we do take suggestions from our patrons. They go on a list, and when a theme appropriate pops up,
yes, we collect them all and we create a theme.
That is correct.
Yes. So Katie Beers was definitely highly suggested, and boy, howdy. I mean, she wasn't held captive that long. Not to say that any amount of time is, I don't know, judgeable.
Doesn't make it less traumatic.
No, not at all. By far, not at all. Because this case really fucked me up in a lot of ways. But, man.
Trigger warnings on this one?
Yeah, child stuff. Lots of...
So, trigger warnings in advance, like with most of our cases this month. Child sexual assault, do we have that one? Child abuse.
Yep, child abuse, child abduction.
Child abduction.
Yeah, she was little, so...
Yeah, so there you go, guys. If you are not in the headspace to listen to this today, please click away.
It does have a happy ending, though, so I will appreciate it for that. But yeah, Katie Beers has just the real life Cinderella story, like Cinderella beyond Cinderella. Like she's pretty much it for that. She was also known as the girl in the wall. I think it would be better known as the girl in the bunker. But, yeah, Katie Beers, she was born December 30th of 1982. Her mother, Marilyn Beers, gave birth to her and basically didn't want her, basically, from the start. Her father is unknown. She was conceived through a one-night stand. And when she was about 2 months old, her mother, Marilyn, asked her best friend, who is also her children's godmother, Linda. I practiced this so many times. It's like an Italian last name, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it." And I practiced it, and now that it's time to do it, I'm like, "Oh, it's so hard." I hear a lot of people give like podcasters a really hard time about pronunciation on words, and I will say, it is easy to practice at home.
And then when that microphone's in front of your face, it flies right out of your
tongue
brain.
just turns into like knots and tangles. It's Ingerary.
Ingerary?
Ingelary.
All right.
Yeah. I'm trying not to like make the yeah sound on the double L because it's really natural, but it's Ingelary.
All right, you did good.
Okay, there. I had to practice it a couple times.
Better practice a couple times and get it wrong.
Just dance it out, man. You gotta. So yeah, Linda and then her husband Salvatore, and Katie Beers had an older brother named John, and so one night her mother Marilyn just was like, "I have a headache. will you watch these two so I can get some rest? And she went over, the children went over to their house, and when their mother Marilyn, allegedly, when their mother Marilyn came back for them, Linda and Sal would not let her have her children back. I say allegedly because Marilyn and Linda continued their friendship afterwards. They were still best friends after Linda allegedly kidnapped her children from her.
Yeah, I'd kill you.
So yeah, I don't think that's...
I'm not buying that.
I think that it was kind of... I think it was the way that a lot of people interpret the story, as Marilyn literally just dumped her kids on this woman.
That's how I take it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So from about 2 months old until Katie was about almost to the time of her abduction, she lived with Linda and Salvatore. And it was here at her grandmother's house that Katie was basically treated like a servant. This was her Cinderella life from day one. I mean, until the time that she could walk. So like maybe a year old, maybe 2. She was made to clean, sweep, wipe everything down. She was made to cook. She was made to do their laundry. She was made to be at their beck and call. It was literally 24/7. She was made to do exactly what they told her to do. And it was an absolute miserable existence, because not only was she, their beck and call servant, but Salvatore, she treated Linda like her aunt. She called her Aunt Linda, even though it wasn't blood. And so Salvatore would be essentially her uncle, but not by blood. But either way, he started sexually assaulting her from about 2 years old.
God.
And until she left the house. He was a monster. He was an absolute monster. And she just had to kind of live this horrible existence because nobody else would look after her. And she even later said that, the community knew. People knew that she was being abused. Nobody did anything. Or nobody knew where to go to get help.
Because we all know CPS does a lot more harm than help.
Yeah.
She's
very lucky for her ending. And she even says it herself. She's very lucky.
I did say that, and I want to clarify really quick.
Definitely.
I've known individual social workers, and I am not talking about that.
Right.
I'm talking about the system as a whole that frequently loses children, places children in homes where they're continually abused and molested. So I get why, when you're faced with a situation as a community member and abuse is going on, what do?
Right.
We do not have any resources.
Right. Resources that we can count on.
Because I can't count on CPS.
Right.
I would only call it in the most extreme cases.
I wish we could count on it.
I do too.
I really do.
Yeah. But we can't.
But yeah.
Especially not if you're brown or black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or honestly, poor white people in this area. I've seen a lot of, poor meth head, people on meth that live in really, really abusive situations for their children, and they get overlooked. Their children get overlooked because they're white, and because their family knows so and so, their children get neglected that way too.
Well, it's just that the system just fails in every capacity.
It really does.
Yeah,
it really does, and it's really hard to depend on it.
Absolutely.
And it failed her. And every single adult in her life failed her.
Absolutely.
Until the end. She really lucked out at the end. And I know I keep holding on to that. And I hold on to that for myself too, because I'm about to have to tell her story. And I'm just really thankful that she has the ending, because most people don't.
No.
Most of these stories don't. And they are really hard to tell. But I'm really proud of her. So when she was 7, by the time she was 7, this is years, about 5 years of sexual abuse from her so-called uncle. She tried telling Linda what was going on with Sal. And Linda essentially blew up on her, yelled at her, and told her to get out of her fucking face. A little girl trying to seek help. And the abuse continued for another few years. She wasn't allowed to go to school or play outside. She had no friends her age. Her only friend was a family friend that lived close by who would come to visit from time to time, a man named John Esposito. They called him Big John, not just because he was John, who was an adult, and then she had her brother John, who was Little John. So you had that distinguishing factor in their family. But the neighboring kids also called him Big John because he was a known member of the Big Brother, Big Sister organization. And so he had a lot of littles that he would sponsor, and so he was known throughout the area to be like, I don't know, the guy to go to.
Yeah.
If a kid needed help, he was the guy to go to. So Katie had essentially known John Esposito since she was born. He was a friend of her mother, Marilyn's. Marilyn drove a taxi, and one of her frequent customers was John's mother, Rose Esposito. And Marilyn would frequently open up to her about her children. You know, they'd get to talking while she was driving and, you know, cab faring. And Rose one time was, she opened up about how, like, her kids didn't have a dad. They didn't have a male influence, especially her son. And so Rose was like, well, you should meet my son, because my son is part of the Big Brothers, Big Sisters thing, you know, like, he could really help. He could really help and be a father figure. So John Esposito ended up being a big brother to Katie's brother, John, taking him to amusement parks, concerts, sporting events, arcades, like all kinds of things. And even over to his house to play video games. This guy had every video game console you could think of. His place was kind of like a lounge spot for kids, especially after school and things like that. It was a neighborhood safe place for kids. And over the years, as Katie grew up, she began this friendship with John. And John ends up becoming the only, like, nice, kind constant in her life. And at first, she didn't actually see him that much because he was kind of her brother's friend. But after a while, as she grew up, she became closer and closer with him. And he was actually the person that bought her first bicycle and taught her how to ride her bike. So she had that kind of level of almost like father figure / best friend.
Fatherly.
Yeah. She considered him her best friend because she didn't have any friends, sadly, because this is a 40-something-year-old adult.
This is inappropriate, by the way. It's wildly inappropriate to befriend a child in that manner, in my opinion.
Yeah. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
We'll get into it. Because the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization has been good for children in communities, but it also has a lot of controversy behind it. But that's, yeah. So eventually Big John would come over to see Katie more often and take her out for fun, just like he would take her older brother out. She would grow up, you know, seeing him doing that. So finally it was her turn. She got to go out with him occasionally from time to time. And she would always look forward to his visits. And it was kind of that break that she needed for her sanity. You know what I mean? She needed this moment of happiness because she was living in such a dark existence. It was just so bad where she was. And, she had fun with Big John. When Katie was 9, her brother told her mother, Marilyn, all about what had happened between her and Sal. And so Marilyn took the children away that springtime in 1992 when she was 9. And so the children, Katie, Little John, Marilyn, and then they all lived with Marilyn's mother, Helen. They all lived together and tried to find some normalcy after this terrible near decade of insanity. And not much is really said about this few months that they lived together, because they lived together from about springtime to about Christmas time. Not much is really said, but she very adamantly calls Marilyn Marilyn. She does not call Marilyn mother. So I can assume, if anything, not much happened. Not much bonding happened during this period of time. But after Christmas in 1992, that Christmas in 92 was her first year away from Linda and Sal for Christmas time. And it would yeah, it would be her only Christmas at that point. So it was kind of a celebration for her.
Well, yeah.
And her birthday's on the 30th. So after Christmas, Linda comes to the house, found her. It's in another town. Found her and, you know, comes banging on the door, pleading with Marilyn to allow Katie to come over for her birthday. So her birthday's on the 30th. She wanted to hold a birthday party
really?
in
Sure
between
you just
Christmas
don't want
and
to
her
steal
birthday.
the kid back and then make them do chores? Just saying.
I don't know. We'll talk about what I think. I'll just tell you like it is, and we'll discuss what I think. But yeah, so she ends up begging Marilyn. Marilyn is really uneasy about this. She doesn't want to do it, but she's like, okay,
God.
fine. But under these conditions, as long as Sal is nowhere near Katie, because there is a restraining order on him right now, and so he cannot be anywhere near her in the house or near the property, which is understandable. She also says, Marilyn tells Linda and Katie separately that Katie is not allowed anywhere near John Esposito, Big John. She doesn't tell Katie why. I don't think that she tells Linda why, but she says that John Esposito is not allowed anywhere near Katie.
I'm for that.
I mean,
100%.
I mean, she doesn't explain why, but she makes those two things abundantly clear that as long as those two men do not come near her daughter, that, okay, her daughter can come over for a birthday party. So she does. So Katie had to go back to basically her childhood prison, and Linda threw her a birthday party with tons of presents.
I'm surprised.
And cake.
But yeah.
Big John showed up.
Not surprised.
He showed up with a Barbie dream house, which, come on, what almost 10-year-old doesn't want? A beautiful, brand new Barbie dream house.
I had one.
I never did.
And I loved it very much and sincerely.
I think I had like the knockoff version or something that was much smaller, which I still liked, but you know what I mean? I never had like the number one.
Well, I grew up with a lot of privilege and a lot of affluence. My mother made a whole hell of a lot of money in my early and teen years.
Right.
But I mean, of course, that went in the toilet utterly.
Right. But this is 92. You would be... Well, you would be right around that age. Yeah, 12.
I was past Barbie time then, but I did I had all that stuff.
And you know the hype.
I know the fucking hype.
You know the fucking hype.
It's not the same hype today, y'all. There's so many choices, but back then it was Barbie, or you could go fuck yourself. Right. I love that shit.
I was such a Barbie girl.
I don't know if
I collected vintage Barbies too.
I did too.
So I had like the 1940s, 1950s, the 1960s, like the rubber smelled different.
It did. Yeah. But I had this one Barbie. It had really, 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 really long hair, and it was the crimp hairstyle Barbie. And it came with Dep hair gel.
My favorite was the Ken one that came with the aftershave lotion, and it smelled like one. Sexy man.
It did smell like sexy.
Like, wow.
Ken is gay as hell, though. Ken is gay as hell. He is queer coded. Anyways, please continue.
I needed comedic relief because it's not a fun story.
Nope.
So he brings over this Barbie dream house, and she lights up. It's her birthday. It's Barbie dream house. But it's not assembled. And so he's like, well, I'll come over tomorrow and assemble it. So she continues her birthday. It's fine. He leaves. He comes back the next day. He assembles the Barbie dream house. And then he asks Linda, like, hey, do you mind if I take her to Spaceplex? Spaceplex is a space-themed arcade, like indoor arcade place.
Fucking loved the arcade as a child.
Oh, it's so fucking cool.
I would go smoke cigarettes in there and beat grown men at Mortal Kombat 2.
I remember sharking like ashtrays and shit.
Like a fucking
so bad.
Just so a bad. Miscreant thief goblin person.
But she loved it, and she'd been there before. He had taken children there a lot of times. Her brother, she's gone with him before. This is totally normal.
Right.
And so, yeah. So him asking to take her to Spaceplex on her birthday is a totally normal thing to do. And, Linda agrees. And he's kind of like rushing her out the door. And Katie is getting this really awful feeling in her stomach. And she even looks at her Aunt Linda and is like, I don't, like, are you sure? She's like, my mama says I'm not supposed to be around him. And she's like, oh, no, you'll be fine. You'll be home in a couple hours. And then literally pushed her out the door to go be with Big John. Now, in the couple hours leading up to Katie leaving in the couple years, backtracking, part of the reason why she's feeling so nervous, besides the things that her mother is saying, she's also been experiencing some things with Big John that have kind of made her a little uneasy. In the years leading up to this, up to her leaving her Aunt Linda's, when he'd come visit, as he's leaving, he'd whisper in her ear things like, hey, meet me around the corner at 2 a.m., sneak out and come meet me. And things like that.
That's wildly inappropriate.
Clearly inappropriate as adults looking back, but her as a child, there was red flags, but she was just kind of like, that's a weird time to do that. She didn't think like, oh, this person is not my friend. This person is trying to do things to me, because she doesn't have that scope of reality yet. You know what I mean? Like, she can't possibly think that way yet. But she does kind of get that pit in your stomach kind of icky feeling like, oh, this is weird. And so, whenever he'd tell her these things, when he'd whisper these things in her ear, tell her to meet him, and she wouldn't, he'd come back, the next time he'd see her, he'd be like, why didn't you meet me? And she would have to make up some sort of excuse. She had at least that understanding that
that was inappropriate of him.
And that she needed to make something up so it wasn't a big deal.
God, what a creep.
Yeah. So she's also dealing with that. Plus her uncle figure is, doing what he's doing at any chance he can get. And, it just sucks. It just sucks. So now all this is happening. Plus the adults are all restricting their visits and everything like that. Katie feels really uneasy about Spaceplex at this time. And usually she'd be really excited and unfazed, but this time it feels creepy, it feels off, and she's like, red flags are blaring. John was in a hurry to leave. Linda literally rushed her out the door and is like, well, you'll be home in a couple hours. A couple hours goes by, and Linda receives a voicemail from Katie. And she's crying. She said that a man had kidnapped her, and she said that the man had a knife. And at the end, she goes, oh, no, he's coming. I gotta go. And she says it just like that. I'll leave the link to it. But she says it very strange.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's very, forced and faking it.
Uh-huh.
It's really strange the way she's saying it. And the investigators later on, it's weird that she said kidnapping instead of this man took me,
Not words a kid would use.
Not words a kid would use. Especially a kid that didn't go to school. She wouldn't have said that. So a few hours later, so she receives this phone call, and in the voicemail, you can hear Linda picking up as she's saying, I gotta go. He's coming. You can hear Linda go, Katie, and then it clicks. I'll leave it for you to hear. But it's just whatever. It's a little fishy. And right as she's calling police, in the middle of her phone call, in the middle of dispatch, police are already arriving at Spaceplex because Big John had also called the cops around this time. Mm-hmm. Police
This
arrive.
stinky
It's
as
all
hell.
stinky. It's all stinky. And it goes with those percentages that we talked at the last couple episodes ago. It really does.
It's always somebody you know.
It does.
Usually.
So police arrive at Spaceplex and, they start shutting everything down. Big John is at the scene answering questions. He said that he saw her from across the room and she was walking through the crowd towards a machine, and all of a sudden she was gone. That was it. Just gone. Vanishes in plain sight. Police had everyone leave the arcade. They shut everything down. They processed the scene as if Spaceplex was the crime scene. And it didn't take them long to realize that there was no evidence of Katie ever being there.
It's almost like she wasn't.
It's almost like she wasn't there at all, but he was there. John Esposito was seen there by numerous people.
Oh, yeah.
But no Katie.
Interesting.
And this is just a couple hours after he picked her up.
It's almost like he went there by himself to make that phone call.
The voicemail recording was sent to the FBI, as well as the phone itself that it was recorded on.
Right.
Because this is all tangible items right now. It's not in the digital age.
We ain't in there yet, y'all.
So actual tape, the voicemail is on, just in case you didn't know that. So they sent it all, and they found that the call was made from the phone booth outside of Spaceplex. But the phone call itself was actually a recording of Katie Beers, and they knew this. Like, it was just like held up to the phone, like it was on a recorder, held up to a phone on the phone box. They knew that it was a recording because there was no background noise.
And it cut out the background noise that was there normally.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Forensic science.
Yeah, especially back then. I love it because
Me too. It gives me the chills. It's awesome.
It's not lazy. It's hard work. It really is.
Exactly. I love forensic scientists. I think they're amazing.
It's yummy information, yeah. They also found that Linda had received nine phone calls prior to this voicemail from the same location. And yet she couldn't catch the phone in time.
Girl, where were you? Unless
you were
this is planned. Yeah.
Sus as fuck. So the investigators zeroed in on Katie's mother first and found that she was just an incompetent mother all around. Everybody was just like, yeah, you don't fucking care about your kids, and you never have, and you never will. And like, we could just see that you're exuding it.
So terrible.
And she did. I mean, yeah, and then the godmother, Linda, was basically transparent with police, and they knew pretty much within a few minutes of talking to her that this child was used as basic, like, servant level labor, and like that this child was severely abused by both Linda and Salvatore. They knew, like, within the first few minutes. It was just so sad, so devastating, because they have the gall to not even cover it up. You know what I mean? They were just blatant.
Flagrant.
Yes.
Flagrant.
Yes. Just in your face about it. They knew that, Sal was sexually assaulting this little girl. They knew that both people were verbally and physically abusing this little girl, that she was made to clean up after them at all times, and all of this. But everyone had solid alibis, except for Big John. Yep. And though most people didn't actually suspect him at first, because again, in his community, he is seen as...
He's helping.
Yes.
He's helping all these kids.
He's right there at the scene when police get there.
He's
and
ready
he's
to
distraught.
Cooperate and help.
Yes,
and all that
he
good
cares
stuff.
about this little girl. This girl is basically a family member to him. He's known her since she was a baby. Oh, it makes me sick. Okay. So investigators ended up contacting Big Brothers, Big Sisters, because this is what everybody goes back to. Everybody goes back to, well, he's a big brother. He couldn't do this. This isn't in his, this is something that he would do. He loves children. He's disgusting is what he is. They contacted Big Brothers, Big Sisters to do a background check on John Esposito and found that he was never a member of the organization, at all. He tried, and
damn.
yeah, and they turned him away like before, like just on his application, because they found that he had attempted to abduct a 7-year-old boy in 1978.
Just not surprised in the slightest.
I know.
Anybody who's that inappropriate with their kind of trying to have an adult relationship with a child, I'm always very suspicious of.
Which sucks, because like I would love to be that person that
Would
a
love to
child could
mentor a
come
child.
to. Yes, because I've needed those adult
But here's
figures.
the thing, is he wasn't trying to be a mentor, he's trying to be a buddy. You can't be a buddy
He's
to a child
essentially
you
taking
don't know.
them on dates is what he's doing.
Exactly.
Because he's also taking them to his house, and I'll explain what his house is like here in a second.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I don't like this man. So yeah, what really happened that day in between, you know, her leaving and him showing back up at Spaceplex, John had picked her up from Linda's, and on the way to Spaceplex, he stopped at 7-Eleven and said, "Hey, let's get you a slushie." I was like, hell yeah, it's her birthday. Like, fuck yeah, let's get a slushie. So they get a slushie, and then he's like, hey, let's go to Toys R Us. Remember Toys R Us? That's not a thing anymore.
I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid.
That's right, girl.
Yes.
It's so interesting to see the Toys R Us, like, post-apocalyptic looking, like, shut down.
Freaks me out.
I love it. I love it. It's aesthetic. So they go to Toys R Us, and she picks out a Nintendo game. It was Home Alone.
This is pitiful.
I know.
This hurts my feelings.
I know. So they buy that game, and then he's like, wait, do you even have a Nintendo? And she's like, no.
That's such a kid thing to do.
No. And he's like, well, I have a Nintendo. He literally has every gaming device that you can have at this time.
Of course he
Mm-hmm.
fucking does.
And so he's like, well, you know, why don't we go to my house and play this game for a little bit, and then we'll go to Spaceplex. And so she's like, yeah. Because she had been there with her brother playing video games all the time.
Yeah.
Like, she'd been there all the time. She understands this whole thing. Like, this is totally normal to her. So, yeah, he had like this really nice house though, by the way. Like it's another level to like why she felt comfortable with this. He had a really nice house. Like you drive up and there's like this big column, like pillars, and it's like this big, like almost estate looking front area. He had basically turned it to a bachelor pad inside. I think it was his parents' house. So it looks really nice. It's in a nice neighborhood. So as you pull up, especially as a child who grew up impoverished, you know what I mean? Like it's another level of her getting excited about going to his house.
Yeah, kids who grew up in poverty frequently are impressed by like houses and stuff like that. Like
I
a
was.
pool or
I
like
was a big
fridge
one
in the
as a kid.
garage.
Yes, a garage in general. Like I was like, wow, this is so cool. When I saw his house, I thought about me as a kid, and I would have thought that would be like
my very
so cool.
Early childhood, we lived in like a piece of shit house that we had cardboard furniture when I was growing up.
God.
Yeah, but then my mom got this really amazing job, and I remember that having that feeling going into our new house.
Right. You're like, I'm too dirty to be in here. The walls will get
I was
dirty.
like, ooh, I'm like a cockroach in the potato salad.
You don't want to touch anything because your fingerprints will get on it.
I immediately broke a part of the staircase when we moved in, and my dad wanted to kill me. It was very funny.
But yeah, I can imagine her pulling up to this house feeling not just comfortable there, but looking forward to going there, if that makes sense. Because a lot of people will do that. They'll be like, why would she do that? Why would she go there? Why would she say yes?
I'm so tired of those fucking questions. I want to puke.
I know. I just have to reiterate that every case. Like, this is a normal thing for her to do.
In addition, even if it wasn't, like, you don't understand your decision-making capabilities as a child sucks. You're prone.
Me.
You're prone to impulsivity. Your brain doesn't finish developing until you're 25. So, like, ease off some children.
She's 10 years old and she has been abused since day one.
She didn't even go to school. So, like, shut up with the victim blaming. I swear I'm going to punch somebody in the gooch. Stop.
So he takes her to play her video games. Now, the video game console area, it's this big TV. It's got the stack of consoles for you to choose from. Like, everything's laid out perfectly. You know, there's there's like stacks of the games themselves. There's all the controllers laid out. You know, it's all right there. It's really inviting. There's the couch. There's a punching bag, a big ass TV. There's like a workout area. There's an area to play board games. There's stacks and stacks of board games. Any board game you can think of, it's there. Pretty much anything you could think of that a child would want is there in this big room, as well as his bed.
That's not where it goes.
Yeah. And so all these times that Katie's been over with her brother, the bed didn't... in her mind, it wasn't there. You know what I mean?
It just faded into the background.
Faded in the background.
It wasn't a prominent thing. It wasn't a threat then.
Yeah. But now that her brother wasn't there, now today felt so icky coming over at this.
Now it feels bad.
Now it feels bad.
Scary.
Now it's scary. Now her stomach turns and now she realizes there's a bed in the room.
Poor little thing.
And yeah, I mean, trigger warning, I'm not going to say more than a sentence of it, but, he does. He pulls her onto the bed and he molests her, you know, and this obviously is the turning point where she's like, okay, this was my best friend.
So awful.
This was my only friend. This was the one person that I could count on. This was the person I looked forward to seeing. This was the person that I felt comfortable with.
He was her break from her drudgery and her
literal light in the darkness.
And he turned on her and betrayed her. Disgusting.
She had no idea what he was capable of, or what he had been planning and grooming her for years for.
Absolutely.
Years.
So insidious and vile.
He'd been planning this for years.
So creepy, dude.
It's disgusting. It was her 10th birthday. 2 days before her 10th birthday. So yeah, she's faced with this. You know, he's completely robbed her of her friendship and her understanding of what security really is at this point. And then after he was done, he grabbed her and carried her like sideways, like a briefcase, like carried her into his office, stuffed her under the office desk for a second while he started grabbing some things. In that split second that she was stuffed underneath the desk, Katie reached up on top of the desk, grabbed the cordless phone, and dialed 911. In a flash, like in an instant, she was like, all right, bet. And like started calling the cops. But literally before she could even say anything, he was standing over her.
Yep.
He grabbed the phone, he slammed it down, and then he grabbed Katie and he took her into the closet that was in his office. And he slammed her against the wall. Now, the wall that he slammed her against was unfinished. It was still like halfway under construction. Yeah. And it still had the screws coming through. So when he slammed her against the wall, the screws like punctured her back.
Oh, Jesus.
And so she's crying from all of this, you know, emotional and traumatic pain that she's going through. And now she's got like really jarring physical pain that she's going through. It just really increases her, like she's just crying and sobbing and she's in, you know, it just increases all the senses that are going on with her right now. And she watches as he crouches down and lifts the carpet to expose a trap door. He pulls a concrete slab up. It's pulls up with a series of pulleys, and underneath there's a hole. It's a shaft. And she's going to have to get into that shaft. And it's a very tight squeeze. It's like a 1x1 square. And it's 7 feet long. It was later measured at 7 feet. So she was like, I'm not going in there. She's like, no. And he basically just picked her up and dropped her down the hole.
God.
She landed at the bottom, and at the bottom is an equal, like, an equal size tunnel that went perpendicular with a door at the end. So she had to crawl on her hands and knees.
Oh, it'd be so scary.
Through like this, I think it was about 6 or 7 feet long, 1 by 1 kind of tube, like a tunnel. Oh, I'm so terrified by tight spaces.
Me too.
I like big hugs and blankets and stuff, but tight spaces.
We ain't going spelunking, my friend.
No, big open caves I'm fine with, but the tight cave.
Oh, the squeezes? I can bleh, bleh.
Nope.
I've seen The Descent.
Yeah, I don't like that movie. No. So, the end of the tunnel, there's a little door that opens, and it opens up into a small room. This room is about 7 feet long and 6 feet wide. So it is a very small, it's smaller than this room. It's smaller than like half of your room.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a very small room. And so she crawls out and it opens up. Basically, the small room is like a dungeon. It's completely soundproof. There's no windows. Unless that one light bulb was on, it's pitch dark, completely dark. Like sensory deprivation.
Ugh.
And there was a dirty mattress in the corner, and next to it was a makeshift soundproof wooden casket with a lid and everything.
That would be so scary for a child to have to see.
Surrounded by chains. And in the corner was a toilet that was not plugged into anything. It had like a trash bag inside of it to catch any waste. But that was it. There was a tiny little TV that was mounted in the corner that she was allowed to watch things on. It was mostly either like the news or I believe you could flip the channel. I've heard some reports say that there was another TV like in the crawl space. I don't know. But there was a TV that she could watch where she could, I believe she just switched like the HDMI because she was able to see through a surveillance camera.
Yeah, there was no HDMI back then.
Really?
So, no. It would have been a video input cord.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Yes.
Whatever those things, because I pictured the red, yellow, white.
Yeah, those are like RCA cables or something.
Either way, she was able to see through a live camera that was mounted out front. So every time that the police came to search this house, which it was quite a bit, and there were police staked out front for a lot of her time during captivity, she was able to see them and not do anything about it.
That is so fucked up.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Really is fucked up because she really didn't know if she was going to live through this. John, whenever he brought her down there and he brought with him a tape recorder and told Katie that he needed her to record herself telling her Aunt Linda that she had been kidnapped. And gave her the lines to say, fed her the words to say.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yes. So he locked her in the room to do it. He was going to go back upstairs because right now she is freshly kidnapped, right? Nobody knows yet, and time is of the essence in order for him to make it, seem real. Mm-hmm. So right now he's in a big hurry to get back to Spaceplex.
Right.
So he leaves her locked up in this room. She's supposed to do this recording while he's upstairs getting whatever shit together that he needs to get together. Probably calling Aunt Linda. Who knows? I'm just speculating. Mm-hmm. But she ends up doing this voice recording the way he told her to. And at the end, she waited a few seconds and whispered, "I'm at Big John's house." Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, he came back down and listened to it.
Oh, no.
And he waited those couple seconds and he heard. And he backhanded her for it. And basically, she had to just redo it. She had to do it like right in front of him. And so that's why it's dead silent in there. And that's why you very obviously fake crying. Because she's in shock at this point and really playing it up. And I think that's actually part of her being intelligent, because she does really show her intelligence here in this. She does some things that are kind of wise beyond her years. And she does attribute a lot of the things that she did during her time in captivity to improve her chances of getting out. She attributes to her upbringing being so horrendous. Just sad.
It teaches you how to survive.
It really does. And it really did prepare her for this.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if maybe the inflictions that she used to really fake cry, you can tell. I think that was just her, playing it, you know, being smart. So once he has the recording, he's got to rush back to the scene and act like he had never left. And he goes to lock her up. And Big John looked at Katie as he's locking her up. He's putting a chain around her neck with a padlock. He says, "This is your home now."
Jesus. These people are fucking monsters.
And then he put her in the small wooden box, covered her with the lid, locked it, and left her there. Oh, wait, this isn't the time that he puts the chain on, because he just put her in the box, right? Covered the lid, locked her in the box, walks away. Once she hears him leave, she starts kicking.
Yeah.
She notices there's like a hinge loose. She starts kicking, and she breaks that box apart.
Good.
But he came back. And he found her.
She can't catch a fucking break.
But before he came back, once she got free, sorry, I forgot about this part. Once she got free from the box, before he came back down, she was searching the room for anything that she could use for self-defense. Anything else. She's like scanning the room real quick. She notices there's like a shelf with like a keychain on top. She grabs one of the keys that are on top of the shelf, grabs a key real quick, slides it underneath the mattress, and then he comes down and finds her. He doesn't know anything about this key. But whenever he finds her, he sexually assaults her in retaliation. And this is the first time he actually rapes her. And it's sad. And I'm not going to talk about every time that he assaults her, because that's not right or fair or necessary.
It's not what she'd want us to take away from her case.
No, but it is multiple times a day, every day, and she is held captive for 17 days. It gets lesser and less as the days go on.
Because the novelty's wearing off.
No, because the heat is on. We'll get into it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But afterwards, after he's done, because again, he's still time is of the essence, he puts the chain around her neck this time. And when he does that, like he leaves for good. And while he's gone, she notices, she's playing, she finds the key that she grabs, and she realizes that it is the key that goes to the lock around her neck.
Awesome.
And she keeps this key the entire time she's in captivity. So anytime that he's gone, she unlocks herself, and she counts every chain link when he puts it on. So that way she knows where to put it back. Too.
So
she counts the chain links around her neck and the chain links to the wall, just to be safe.
That's really smart.
Very, very smart. I would not have thought of that. No. I really wouldn't, especially at that age. But yeah, so she's just, it's just so sad. She's 10 years old. You know, it's her best friend abusing her. She's in a soundproof hole in the ground. Nearly impossible to find. There's multiple secret entrances. Like there's so many barriers for them to get to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to go through his house, through the room, through the closet, through the flooring, through a concrete fucking square. It's like a 200-pound concrete square that you have to lift up. There's so many moving parts to get to her, and she knows this, that the likelihood, the chances of her getting out are so small. She's just sitting there knowing that
there's no hope for her.
There really isn't. Mm-mm. Now, he, again, allows her to have TV pretty much 24/7, and this is her only hope. Because there's no sunlight, right? And basically time doesn't exist. So she's just sitting there kind of watching TV. She's also physically exhausted and malnourished because she doesn't want to go to sleep. And she doesn't want to eat the food that he gives her because he told her that he needs a picture of her acting like she's dead.
Jeez.
Because if he takes a picture of her supposedly dead, he can show that to the police officers, anonymously send it to police.
Yes. And then they'll think she's dead.
They'll think she's dead and not come looking for her.
Uh-huh.
And that's not necessarily how it happens all the time, but this is what she definitely believes right now. And so, and I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. It obviously does. But she's very adamant that she is not going to be caught asleep. So this 10-year-old knows to not eat food that is prepared for her because it could be poisoned or drugged. So she only eats things that are packaged, and she refuses to sleep. So that way he can't catch her. He can't catch her sleeping.
Super smart.
Super smart, super brave. Just, I don't know how she does it.
I don't either.
So she saw her missing persons report on the news, and she sees her mother on the news crying for her. And this hurts her heart because she always, just like me, has always wanted a mother.
Yeah.
Yearned for a mother. So when she sees her mother crying, she's like, oh, okay. And then she sees her Aunt Linda crying, and she's like, nah, fuck you. And then she sees Sal crying, like saying like, oh, we just really want to find her. And she's like, no, fuck you.
For real.
Like, of course you want me found.
So you can abuse me some more.
Yes. So it's just like, it's gut-wrenching for her to watch the news on this case. In the beginning of her captivity, John would come down there multiple times a day to abuse her, but as police presence got gradually heavier and heavier, and eventually 24/7 surveillance was on his house, the trips down to the dungeon became fewer and fewer, and Katie figured this out. She knew that police were watching him, which, you know, obviously they were, and she could see on the cameras. She could hear when they come home and talk to him and interrogate him. She knew that they were at the house all the time, and she could tell that this was making him very anxious, very wound up. It was taking a lot of his time out of his day, to where towards the end, he was only coming down once a day at night to change, you know, the waste out and like take all the trash out and give her food. And that's basically all he had time to do because he was being watched. And she started asking him questions. She started wearing down his psyche. She started turning this on him. And so she started asking questions like, what are your plans for the future? What are you going to do with me then? Like, what are you going to, you know, do with, you know, going to school? How are you going to deal with me needing a dentist? What are you going to do with me whenever I'm sick? You know, what about, you know, I want to grow old and have a family and have children and get married. And he'd say things like, well, you can have children with me. And she'd be very obviously defiant. She's like, no, fuck that. I don't want to have kids with you. Ew. And, you know, she would just really wear on him with the questions.
Good.
And it was really driving him nuts because the police are asking him questions. She's asking him questions. He's having to think about all these.
He don't want to answer a single one.
None. And he doesn't want to think about the future because what are the future consequences if the police are this hot right now? You know, his anxiety is through the roof. And then, because again, he's once a day coming in now, she starts to act sick. Right? She's so smart. She starts to act sick. He sends her medicine and the medicine doesn't work because obviously. And so, you know, she acts so sick that it's like, it's getting him scared that, you know, he's going to have a dead body that he has to deal with. He can't take her to the hospital. You know, what if she has an infection? You know, this is, she's saved at 17 days. So, you know, that's still enough time for an infection to set in. And, you know, he's getting really, really worried at this point. And again, there's police surveillance like right out the window. So one day he had a breaking point. He called his attorney and he said, I know where Katie Beers is.
Oh my God.
He was like, I have her. He was like, but I want a deal.
Yuck.
Yep. And so his attorney called the district attorney's office and they basically said the same thing. They said, hey, we have Katie Beers, but we want to make a plea bargain with you before you go get this little girl. Fucking disgusting. I hate the way this system works. So yeah, John Esposito was able to make a plea deal before any arrest was made. And on January 13th, 1993, John Esposito brought the attorneys and the police down to his makeshift dungeon. With the long process to get to it, it's just insane. So you have to move a bookshelf that's on wheels. You pull it aside, and then it exposes this small room. You have to peel back a layer of vinyl flooring, and it exposes the 200-pound concrete block. This you have to physically hook up to these levers and pulleys. You have to get some of the tools for it. You have to get from the garage. So it's a several step process that nobody would able to figure it out without him.
Right.
So if they were to arrest him out on the street or whatever, and they would never be able to find her.
Never she'd die.
Like say he was like selling coke on the side or something like that, and they arrested him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that could be bad.
They had to be careful. I mean, I don't know if they knew that he had her in the house, but still.
Right. Well, they had the feeling, and she even asked him, like, what are you going to do, like, if this gets worse? And he was talking about killing himself. She's like, well, fuck, if he kills himself, I'm definitely not getting out of here. And then he talked about running away. And so if he did that, he would either kill her and run away, or he'd run away with her, which her likelihood of getting found is even worse.
And then they can't find her, too.
Right.
So.
Right. But yeah, he had to get like a certain tool to do the lever thing for the 200-pound concrete block. And then under that was a plywood door that you had to, like, it had like a makeshift little handle. You had to lift that up. And then that was the 7-foot shaft that you drop down. You could kind of crawl down, but you basically just drop down into it, crawl over. And so she's hearing all of this happening down in her like completely dark, small, dank, nasty ass dungeon that she's in. She's hearing all of these noises. She knows now the sounds of all the power tools that it takes to get in there. I mean, by this time she could probably count and have a good accurate estimate of how long it takes to get down there. So she's just waiting for these people to come down there. And, which, by the way, when she's down in there, she remembers, she's like looking at her place that she's being held captive, and she's like, I remember playing in this. When he
was building it all that time.
He was building it for years. He was planning this specific abduction of Katie Beers for years.
So fucked up.
While he was being her friend, and he would have her brother come over with her. She remembers playing on a construction site, which I used to play on construction sites all the time because
me too.
You know, that's fun. It's fun to go through the walls. She remembers playing on this specific construction site as a young child.
So terrible.
Just scary. So yeah, she's chained in this dark room. She hears the power tools. She hears the men coming down the tunnel. She hears multiple men talking. She can't really make out what they're saying, but all she's assuming is that, oh, he brought friends.
Yeah.
More people to do harm to me. And one of the men opened the door to the dungeon and find this 10-year-old little girl. And other men come in and they announce themselves as officers, and they get her. They actually tell her, like, it's okay, we're police officers, you're safe now. And she kind of thinks to herself, like, yeah, right. And she freezes. She doesn't move because she's, already, like, she's been held captive so long.
Traumatized.
Yes. And then they keep the door open behind them as she's talking. And she realizes once they say it a few times, like, no, you're safe. It's okay. We got you. She sees the door open and she grabs her shit and she runs out the door, just in case they're lying.
Yeah, I don't
She
blame
books
her.
it. And they end up telling her, they get her in the cop car. It's an unmarked cop car. And they haven't even pulled out of the driveway yet, and they have to kind of set her down and be like, look, there's already media everywhere. There are people everywhere. You have to just kind of smile and nod, try to get past all the cameras. It's going to be really jarring because she was at this point a nationwide case. Everybody saw her face everywhere. And it was really hard for her to kind of just like slap on a smile and wave at everybody.
After all she'd been through, yeah.
Right. She just wants to get to safety. She just wants some food. So they take her to the precinct for questioning. More uncomfortable questions, more uncomfortable chairs, more uncomfortable rooms. The uncomfortable lighting, uncomfortable silence in between the questions. It's just the questioning process, and she's about to go through the physical evidence process, and it's just this whole thing is really, really rough on her. She's finally taken to Children's Hospital where she's poked and prodded. They take her to a room where several stories up, so that way the camera crews can't take pictures of her from the outside. And she just knows this on the way up, that's why.
God,
because she can hear the media outside. Mm-hmm. She has an officer standing outside of her hospital room keeping guard, and then she has an officer inside of her hospital room keeping guard. She asked if she could shower, and they said, no, you can't, because you have to be processed.
Oh, God.
And they had to collect evidence and take tests, and they're all taking all these tests, scraping under her fingernails, gathering blood, doing IVs, and she's getting internal exams. She's getting rape kits. She's so thirsty. She's so thirsty.
Poor little thing.
And she asks for water or something to drink. And one of the nurses even tells her a few times no. Which just breaks my fucking heart. And finally, they allow her to have orange juice, but they won't stop the examination for her to get a fucking drink. She has to lay there as a 10-year-old while getting her pelvic exam and get her little sips of pathetic orange juice.
Yeah, it's fucked.
It's so fucked up. It makes me so mad.
They treat dogs better than they treated that child.
It makes my blood boil. So, she has to go through that after all the other things that she's gone through. And once it was all over and she was done with her hospital stay, Katie assumed she was going to be brought back to her mother, Marilyn, and her brother and her grandmother, Helen. But instead, she was shuttled 2.5 hours away to a foster family. This would be the moment where her life changed for the better.
Good, thank God.
This was a foster family that would love her. Now, at first, it's only temporary. They tell her. It's only temporary because they're finishing the investigation on Marilyn, because they want to see why this abduction happened, if it was actually because of Marilyn's wrongdoings as a mother to protect her child.
Yeah.
I think so. Because there was a reward for her. And I'm wondering if that may have been the case. Nowhere has said that. I'm just going to let that very clear.
Yeah, maybe.
No one has actually said for sure if Linda or Marilyn were in on this. But it is very suspicious.
I definitely
to me.
think Linda was.
1,000%. I will stand by that. Even though there is no evidence otherwise. I just really
clearly had no problem with the men around
9
her.
phone calls from the same phone box. Now, thankfully, Marilyn showed to be incompetent and unable to keep her daughter safe. So she got to stay with this family. And this family loved her. They showed her what family was really about. They helped each other with homework. They sat together at the dinner table. They made dinner together. They cleaned up together. Her sisters did her hair. She had sisters now. They helped each other get dressed, and they helped each other, through life stuff. They were able to talk to each other. They were a real family. They respected each other. They worked hard. They played hard. They had 2 golden retrievers and just the quintessential life, the picture perfect thing that she'd always wanted, and literally the exact thing that she dreamed of. And they welcomed Katie with open arms. They loved her. They genuinely loved her. And they ended up staying her foster family from when she was 10 years old, right after the abduction, past her high school graduation. She could have moved out at 18. They could have kicked her out at 18. She stayed there until college, and that's when she met her sweetheart in college. And, she actually left their house to be married. So that is a very big privilege. Very big privilege and a very big honor. And I know that was a huge life-turning event for her. Now, John Esposito, had already gotten the plea deal. So he was arrested. He was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison on September 5th, 2013. After one of his parole hearings, he had actually finally, after 20 years, told his parole board, finally admitted that he had sexually assaulted Katie Beers. He wouldn't admit that part, but he finally admitted it that day. And later that night, they found him dead in his cell room by allegedly natural causes.
Good.
I know, right? I know.
Hooray.
Now, sadly, Katie did have to go to trial. Like, she didn't have to go to trial for his case, but she did have to go to trial for Sal's case. And she did, as a little girl, have to stand in front of her abuser, which was really hard. But Sal did get arrested and put into prison. He was sentenced to 4 to 12 years. He died in prison February 21st, 2009.
Fucking good.
Disgusting man.
Not a man.
No. Not even a human being. I wouldn't even call him a monster, because monsters can be cute sometimes. Just, Katie stayed silent for about 20 years after her abduction, which was really good for her. That's exactly what she needed to do, to heal. And the police officers and the investigators that were in on her case actually put up a bulletin to the media that said, "Do not mess with this girl. Give her time. Give her space. Do not fucking do that again." And they didn't. They left her alone, thank goodness.
Good.
And she was able to make her own debut to the media. She went on the Dr. Phil show, of course.
Of course.
I lost count of how many cases I've done with Dr. Phil episodes. And she also wrote a book called Buried Memories, A Vulnerable Girl and Her Story of Survival, which I have linked below. And she got married. She started a family. She had 2 kids with a loving husband. She had supported parents and sisters and brothers. And she said that was literally all she wanted. She wanted her husband, 2 kids, and a loving family. And that's exactly what she got.
Good. She deserves it.
Right. And a lot of people say, despite it all, and she honestly says because of it all, like she attributes her abduction to getting her out of that situation.
How awful must your situation be that you would think of it as a stroke of luck?
Be thankful that she was abducted.
So fucked, y'all.
It's so sad. It really is.
Poor little thing. I can't.
She now works for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Wonderful.
And, helps tons of children and people through trauma to heal. And she's just a really great speaker. She's a really great person. Definitely listen to her words and definitely read her book, because she has a lot of really important things to say. And she has a really beautiful outlook on it that I would really like to harness sometimes, because I get stuck in that rut where I think, oh, well, life is bullshit and it'll never get better from here. It's really easy for me to not look at positive things in life. It's really hard for me to look at the positive. And she struggled more than I could imagine, and she still found the positive. And she was feisty about it. You know what I mean? She wasn't dazed and confused about it. She wasn't like, oh, it'll be fine, in denial. She was like, no, I'll fucking make it better.
And I just want to point out, so if you're a survivor of child sexual assault or child abuse or even sexual assault as an adult,
right,
your response doesn't have to be positive.
No, that's what I'm saying.
All right.
That's what I'm saying. I don't have that response.
We can admire it, but it isn't a judge of your character. It's no failing on you.
No, not at all.
Because, a lot of times I can't be positive.
Absolutely.
But then some days I can.
How do you?
I don't know.
How do you, when horrible things have happened to you and it wasn't your fault and it was out of your hands, how do you find the positive in life?
I don't. I'm going to be honest.
I usually don't.
But what I do is I repeat it to myself.
Yes.
I wasn't to blame. I was a child.
Yes.
All I can do moving forward is to be good to those around me.
Yes.
And heal from that.
Yes.
In any way I can.
I tend to readjust my focus to what is happening right now. I think that saves me a lot of the time.
I call it taking the temperature.
Yes.
I was like, so how is today?
Right
I'm
now.
safe, I'm warm, I got a roof, and I had a meal, so everything's okay.
Right. If I need to lay down and take a nap, I can.
Exactly.
If I need
safe.
Yes.
That's my big one.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I mean. Whenever people inspire me, I don't mean that they are,
I know you don't mean
the
that.
perfect person.
I just want to clarify for everybody listening that we don't think that.
And I know that I know that a lot of us are struggling right now. And I know that these cases really bring out that struggle in us because it's not something that we just get over. It's not something that we just heal from. It's something that we're always healing from. And it's a process.
And I do want to tell y'all, I really appreciate a lot of you reaching out to me. It meant a lot to me.
Right.
And you always feel free to do so. And I will always answer. But we're in this together and we're going to get through it, y'all.
Right.
We are.
That's why we share each other's stories.
And I guess the positive I can take from it is if it weren't for that happened to me, wouldn't be where I am today.
I wouldn't be able to understand people if the terrible things have happened to me.
And now we're all in this together, and maybe I can help somebody else someday.
I wouldn't take back a single bad thing that happened to me, but I wouldn't do. I wouldn't want any of the bad stuff to happen to somebody else.
I don't want nothing bad to happen to nobody. But I'm glad we're all here and we can help each other.
Right.
I'm going to do a little business time because I haven't really.
Yeah.
So it's time for business time. And I want to talk about our Patreon because we have a new feature on Patreon, and that's video.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, me and Maris, we're going to wear Willow down.
I'll get in there eventually. I'm just so I'm so shy. It hurts my bones.
It's very silly.
I know it is.
But I get it. It took me a long time to gear up. But here, there's our heads. You can see them on Patreon. We're working on like a little intro to the channel and to the Patreon. So that'll be up soon for the public.
Dipping our toes in.
Getting
a little feet
wet. Get a little taste. We have several tiers. Go check them out. We upload a Patreon exclusive episode every week. Right. We have all of our case photos there. You do not have to be a Patreon member to look at those. We didn't fucking take them. They're not behind a paywall. Right. It's just a good place to organize photos where we can't be zucked.
And, we can post as many as we want. So
no post limit on that. So we post a bunch of photos and documents when applicable.
And our whole entire podcast is sponsored essentially by patrons. They run this show.
They sure do.
God, shout out to y'all because, oh my God, it's so exciting.
It is.
It really is. I keep having this.
I never thought we'd get a 1.
Girl, I keep having this mentality where it's there's only a couple people in Patreon. I just have a couple Patreon members, right? Just a couple. And I look in there and I'm like, oh my God, there's so many.
Yeah.
Hi, I thought this room was smaller.
And notice when we get patrons, we put it right back into the podcast.
Yeah.
We got good filming equipment. So we could do video editing software, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And so, that's for y'all. And if you want to go check that out, go do so. If the intro video, it may take us a couple weeks to get it up, so have some patience there.
It's the learning process.
I got a website now, and we're in the process of putting things on it. My summer and my spring soap collection, and I made some really cool designs.
It's really pretty what I've seen so far.
Yeah, it's really cute. So that's something you can look at. You can join our Discord, not behind a paywall either. Come show me your cat, your dog.
I know you have memes is the thing.
And you're holding
the memes captive, and I would really like for you to set them free.
Release the memes
because I need it for the serotonins, because if you hadn't noticed, this research really sucks. And
it does.
And though these stories are really important, we need the serotonins. And so if you would please just give them.
This is emotional labor for me and Willow to do as child sex assault survivors. If you would like to throw a little tip in our coffee account, that is in our link tree with everything else, and we would really appreciate it. It's this has been a very challenging month for me. Again, y'all's letters really touch me, but it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And I want us all to get there together. I'm not discouraging by any means. We just a little stressy, a little tired.
Yeah, and if you guys are ever like, oh my God, sip, this coffee tastes so good. You know who would like a coffee? Willow and Lillian.
That's true. But I just want to say, if all you can do to support this podcast is give it a listen, thank you very much, and we appreciate you
so much.
And we'll see you next time. Find us on your social media platform of choice. Linktree/Cruelty has all the links. Check out our Patreon for exclusive episodes, merch, ad-free episodes, live ghost hunts, and much more. Please be sure to subscribe. New episodes are uploaded weekly. Thank you so much. See you next time. Music and production by Lady.